Good morning, teachers. I know a lot of you are already preparing for your class observation, but for this school year, we have a new normal set up in the educational system. So we will also have a different kind of class observation under the learning modality, which is modular printed. So in our division, we have our learning delivery modality, which is modular printed. And at times when it is not possible for the students or the parents to get the materials at school, then they can always receive digital copies of their module through their email. And I will be showing you the contents that I prepared, and I prepared this presentation for the first class observation. I will be presenting all of the notes I have here to my head teacher and also to our school head. Okay, the first thing that we need to have is the copy of the learning activity sheets intended for the first quarter. So since this is the first class observation for this school year, they will get materials from you on how you handled classes, on how you provided information or guidelines to our parents, to students' parents, to students, and also to the students' guardians. So make sure you can present a copy of the learning activity sheets intended to be observed for the first quarter. So here I chose week 5 for the first quarter. And I only have two copies. I only have 2 sheets or 2 pages for the learning activity sheets intended for quarter 1, week 5. The first page I included here is the page which contains the learning competency with code that determines all of the other processes and activities included within this learning activity sheet. And the second page that I included here is the page which has the most important activity. So after the students process activity A, B, and C, activities A, B, and C, then they need to do their performance tasks. And most of the time, performance tasks can be found in the last activity or activity D. Here, the students need to analyze the situation given by the teacher, and they need to come up with their own words and sentences to analyze the riddle provided in this module. Of course, we also have there the rubric for scoring the essay that will be provided by our students. I always tell my students not to skip the most important part of their learning activity sheets because that takes the most percentage of their grade. It's okay just to include 2 of the pages here for quarter 1, week 5, LAS or learning activity sheet. Anyway, if they will be asking to present all the copy, you can always retrieve it from your files and show it to them since you will be presenting your screen during your virtual presentation of the MOVs that you use in teaching a specific lesson for quarter 1. Okay, this is of course the next thing that you need to present. After studying, analyzing the contents of the learning activity sheets, then teachers will need to prepare their weekly home learning plan. How are you going to do about the lesson? How are you going to make it simple and easy for your students? That will be the content of your weekly home learning plan. Here basically it's the same for every class. I only handled 1 to 2 classes each day. So I put the same activity, but if there are students identified having difficulties or some challenges with understanding the lesson, then I need to do a little or some adjustments with how to make the activities simpler for those students. You can always prepare your ILMP for students having hard time or students who cannot easily grasp the contents of your lesson. Here, I included all of the pages of my weekly home learning plan, and I can explain that further during my presentation with my head teacher and also our principal or school head. Here, number 3, you need to present some screenshots of your communication with the parents. How did you provide the activities? Did you provide guidelines? Were the guidelines provided reach to the level of your students? Did you make it simple for them? Did you make it easy? Did you provide particular or specific instructions on how to go about different activities in their learning activity sheets? Here, I always provide students instructions in our messenger group chats, or in other cases, if just for example, the parents go to school every Friday, and some parents would give a letter to request if they can receive the instructions through text message. They can always request for that, and teachers are willing to provide them the complete instructions through text message. It's better also if teachers can include screenshots of their text messages to parents and students. That would also be a good point. Here, have you communicated clearly and effectively to the level of the learners? I already mentioned it earlier. The message or screenshot that you provided for criterion number 3 can also be provided for criterion number 4. But this time you have to make it specific. Did you express or show respect? And did you clearly uh, give them the instructions that they can easily understand? That's what you need to provide here. Okay, for other activities, I usually give my students samples. So aside from giving them instructions in their main group chats, they have their main group chats where all of their teachers can post instructions. Aside from the main group chats that the students have, I also made our subject group chats. So I actually have 5 main group chats with all of the 5 classes I am handling because there are 5 sections, and there are also 5 group chats for every section that I'm handling, and that would be specific only to English. So for detailed instructions, I always provide it in our subject GC. We call it subject GC, so I give them samples, and sometimes I make sentences for them, but I always remind them not to copy my sentences and not to have the same sentences, especially if they're going to come up with arguments. They cannot have the same arguments as I have. Okay, how did you respond to your learners? How did you respond to your parents' queries? You can include a screenshot in here. Just for example, some students are asking to have more materials. I give them some links where they can explore more about the lessons. I always ask them, if you have Wi-Fi connection at home, then it's good that you can explore other learning materials aside from the learning activity sheets that we have. And always provide students with different options, but still a message as this, that would not be a requirement. It's okay not to watch the video because some students are telling that they cannot really have access to those videos since they don't have Wi-Fi connection at home. Okay, here, always give them announcements for submitting and also for getting new set of learning modules to have. Okay, for this one, teachers need to show screenshots of agreement forms. It could be consent forms or feedback forms that were provided to either parents or students, whether through online or maybe you handed it over to the parents or guardians of the students during the scheduled retrieval and distribution of learning activity sheets. For this one, I provided an agreement form. There are students who would be requesting to submit their materials online, and whenever they ask that to their advisors should also be directing the students' request to respective subject teachers. So if they request to send some copies of the materials online because they cannot easily leave their residences, or perhaps their parents are already committed to some works to be completed, then for those cases, students are welcome to send copies of their materials online. After checking every week's answer sheets, then the teachers also need to present students' incomplete tasks. You should always inform your students, and there should be a copy here of reminder. This is a reminder, a form for the student to complete some parts of their learning activity sheets. It's good that we give them feedback. So this is part of feedbacking session to the students. What activities have they missed? Or I also give students chances to complete activities that they failed to complete due to perhaps not understanding the instructions fully. So they can always be given time or chances to complete the activities. There I have reminder forms for every class that I am handling. I'm handling 5 classes of 10th grade students, and we need to provide screenshots again as our evidence if we have provided students with sufficient information. Some of the screenshots that I presented in previous criteria of this classroom observation tool, I can always have another screenshot or the same screenshot for a different criterion. So here I already showed this one earlier. I can also have it because it's a way to simplify how the activity should be accomplished. Feedbacking is also important, so you can always put notes on your students' paper, and I always remind the students, I always send them messages, direct messages, to remind them of what they need to complete in their activities, or maybe if they answered it incorrectly, you need to remind them of how they should have done the activities. Here, I always write the score in every activity, and also it's important that you put some notes in your students' paper so they know what to do next time, or they will know how to do it better next time. There, correcting minor errors in your students' paper, that is also critical. Okay, how did you show encouragement to the students to use different tools and ideas to expand their knowledge of the topic provided in their learning activity sheets? You can always send them some videos or links where they can explore more about the lesson. And how do you relate the lesson to your students' daily life experiences? Okay, I related to how they should express respect, whether to teachers or other students. Whenever they request for something, I always tell them to type in their messages and type in their messages with a very respectful tone, especially if they're talking to their teachers. Okay, how do you maintain safety procedures in facilitating learners' tasks? Still the same.